Hey, how's it going, everybody? Toon Dojo Sketch and Stream Podcast, Episode 2, flying solo today because I had to come in and really figure out the OBS stuff and the streaming stuff. And just in case anything went wrong, I didn't want guests to have to suffer through my dumb head. So anyway, let's switch over to what I'm going to be working on today. There we go. So today I'm going to try to finish the border of the Swamp Wug card. This is our first prototype of the Ug Wug card game that hopefully we'll get it out for around spring. So I'm just going to work on polishing off and finishing up the border details here. You can see I've already put in kind of this rock shape that I'm going to add a bit more texture to for the statistics and the different details of the card, what Swamp Wug can do. The only thing I don't think I'm going to touch today is the Swamp Wug font. I haven't found one I like yet, so I'm still searching for that. So anyway, let's move onward we go. And it was a lot of fun last week having my daughter as my first guest and talking about the Ug Wug project as well. That was fantastic. Interesting to get her point of view a few years after we've done it. So I just got to find my right layers here. There we go. So I went ahead and I flattened them because I have a lot of blotchy edges and stuff like that. I'm still feeling out what I want to do with it. I'm zoomed in. What am I zoomed in at? 500%. So it looks quite pixelated. It's meant to be, standard Pokemon card size, but that doesn't mean I can't zoom in and figure it out. So I thought while I was working on this, maybe I would share a couple stories from different things I've been exposed to in my very crazy random animation career, including one of them being, if you believe it or not, I once got into a heated argument with the Ultimate Warrior on the phone. It was probably about 11:30 at night, maybe even closer to midnight. And the Ultimate Warrior had responded to a job quote that I had sent out. And Ultimate Warrior had comic books made up that were based on his intellectual property of the warrior. And during the phone call, we had actually bid to transform his comic books into graphic novels with probably about 25% animation. So a character on a cliff wearing a cape, maybe we would animate the cape. But in order to do that, we had to high-res scan all of the comic book art and then start tearing it apart in layers and filling in the gaps so that it could be animated. And, a very timely process, a lot of hours to go into that, but this is 2003, so 2004, around there, way before the advent of AI and, quick masking tools that didn't take a lot of time in Photoshop. So anyway, he was very nice at first on the phone. He was almost identical to, if you watch old school WWF videos when it was called WWF, and you'd see him in his promos, cutting a promo on somebody. You'd see how random and almost abstract his rambling went. with with the promos, and well, he was like that on the phone, especially once he got angry. Now, how did I make him angry? By the way, I just want to preface, Ultimate Warrior was my all-time favorite wrestler. Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man. And, to find myself talking to the Ultimate Warrior while I'm at home on the phone was really something. How did I make him mad? Well, I gave him a number for the job. I insisted on being paid for the job that was being quoted. He didn't like that. And he literally cut me a promo over the phone about I should appreciate the opportunity to work with him, and how dare I try to ride his coattails. I'm supposed to be a good little warrior, was something he said to me, which is crazy. That's a wild, wild statement to make. And as he got angry, he went into full wrestler cutting a promo, talking about throughout the cosmos, all the warriors band together and the snorting and the... And he got right into it. And I immediately recognized that this contract wasn't going to happen. But I didn't hang up the phone, because I was literally thinking the entire time, I wish my grandfather could be right beside me right now, because he was the one who I would watch wrestling with on the weekends. And he would get a kick out of the fact that the Ultimate Warrior was yelling at me on the phone. So I let him go. And then at the end of it, he calmed down and he said, quite correctly, I don't think this is going to work out. And then hung up on me. That was the end of my... I was really hoping for that to go somewhere, because that would have been the second time I came very close to doing artwork for that would have been for Warrior privately, but second time I would have came close to doing WWF related artwork. The first time was during my second year at Sheridan, during my animation training. I had submitted my portfolio to quote on a freelance job of doing caricatures of all the different wrestlers and an animated character designs and possibly an animated opening for a show concept that they were putting together. And I was quite excited about that, because that's a big deal for a second year student. And I was already like figuring in my head classmates I would get involved in it and stuff like that. And it went quite far. They liked the character designs, all the work I had done, the proposal for the animated opening they quite liked. But ultimately the project ended up falling apart. Mostly on their end. They just went a different direction. And then a couple years later, they came out with a WWE animated thing that I had nothing to do with, but it was fun to, I think I actually did about 2010. I think I actually did some WWE character designs as well, or maybe, gosh, I can't remember. There's so many projects that come and go, and unfortunately my career is full of projects that are super cool and they come and then they don't go anywhere. They just fizzle out. So, but anyway, it was quite funny that night that I was on the phone with Ultimate Warrior, because I ended up going upstairs, and I must have had quite the expression on my face because my wife was asking me like, what's going on? Like, everything okay? And I'm like, I just got yelled at by the Ultimate Warrior. That's how I ended up going to bed that night with that fresh in my brain. And she was like, "What? The Ultimate Warrior? What?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the Ultimate Warrior. I got yelled at by the Ultimate Warrior." So I'm kind of proud of that moment, just because of my early boy fandom of that character. But during the phone call, he told me about how he legally changed the name of him and his children, last name, to be Warrior and stuff like this. And I don't know how much was, as they would say, a rib, a shoot, a work. Have no idea. I just kind of went along with it. It was rather it was rather, I don't know, mind blowing. Just 11:30 at night, my phone rings, and it's the Ultimate Warrior. So you never know where artwork and being creative is going to take you. And I'm looking forward to. There's some cool guests lined up for this podcast, and I'm looking forward to getting them on. And I know a lot of them have, like, they make my stories look like piddlies. Got some great musicians that are lined up that are going to be coming on, and sharing. Some of them have worked with like all the major bands, like as big as like the Rolling Stones and stuff like that. So it's very exciting stuff. What I'm doing here, last episode, I had thought I was going to have the dark side of the rocks inward facing, and I've since changed my mind on that. I mean, it makes sense. The light source is within the frame. I just thought it might be a cool contrast, but it turned out I didn't like the way it was going, so now I have to go back and basically paint over my edges and then repaint them again. But that's okay. So yeah, that was I should do it. Make sure I set up the chat okay as well for this, because as I said before, I don't quite know what I'm doing when it comes to the streaming stuff. A lot of it's very new to me. Okay, I think the chat is working okay. So if anybody does happen to tune into the live, they'll be able to submit a chat. But as I tell the people I ask to come on and be a guest, it's not about the live viewership, although, if that happens, wonderful. But I'm not stressing about that. It's really about the replay and the clips. So that's where I'm hoping to get a lot of engagement from the local creative audience in St. John and abroad, of course. So one thing I wanted to talk about, I kind of hinted at it on the first episode when my daughter was here. One thing I kind of wanted to talk about was creative people and how they sort of deal with things like mental health and any kind of disabilities they might have that make that even more of a challenge. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm what they call late diagnosis ADHD. I guess I probably always knew I had it. I just didn't have like the for sure, like the no about it. But since about a month and a half ago, I guess, maybe 2 months ago. So since since my doctor confirmed that, I've been doing a lot of research and backtracking things like behaviors, and that also include like creative behaviors, everything from work, ethic, drive, motivation, stuff like that. And a great deal of this stuff can be traced back to how my ADHD manifests within me. And one of those things is, believe it or not, depression. And it becomes a cycle that feeds itself. And I'm currently, I don't know if I'm definitely not as bad as I was a few weeks ago, but I'm definitely still in a dip, and a depression dip, meaning I'm in a low, and it's really hard, and it can be really hard to keep that creativity going when your brain is sort of in this self-hate mode, distraction mode, concentrating on, your brain tells you a bunch of lies constantly. There's a constant voice like you're not good enough, you're this, you're that, whatever, and it can be a lot. And over the years, I always wondered, like I used to even tell my kids, like, Daddy's broken, so if there are days when I seem a little hard to deal with, like my thoughts are all over the place, like just go with it. I'm, it's not you, it's me, kind of thing. But I never knew why. Now I know why. And knowing why, and to quote G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. It kind of sort of is. Because now at least I understand, and I can. What I found is I've been able to pick up on the. I guess you'd say that the start of the I don't want to say manic episode, but maybe that's the right word. When I start to have a manic episode, I can start to pick up on, okay, this is about to happen, and this is why, and I need to, because there's so many different things with it that, from temper stuff to, getting mad over stupid things, and how those stupid things don't feel so stupid to the person that is mad about them, but in the grand scheme of life, they really are. So I don't know. It's been really tough. And I'm hoping that some of my guests, when they come on, will be brave and share if they have anything similar. Or at the very least, their early days in their career, if they went through anything like imposter syndrome or stuff like that. I'm hoping that they'll be brave and share moments like that with us, because I know for me that will really inspire me and really help feed the. Oh, you know what? I did that rock backwards, didn't I? Ugh. Yep, I did. I'll show you what I mean. I'll do this rock correctly. You'll see. So I'm just lightly smoothing out some of the edges. Some of the little blotchy bits are kind of helpful because they help me decide on the like the rough edging of the rock. I can just color sample. And I'm going to change my brush. It's quite like this soft chalk brush when I'm painting. And the software I'm using right now is Krita. It's free, which is amazing. And if they would just add waveform to audio imports on the timeline, it would be an unbelievable animation software. Like stellar. Yeah, I like that soft chalk. It leaves this rough edge that I quite like. I can play with that more. So that's what I mean right there. You can see, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm doing the same stupid thing again. Okay, this one up here. There we go. Okay. There we go. Oh, I'm turning on my checkerboard there because that makes it so I can only paint on my pixels, which is very helpful. You know, I'm thinking about a time. There's just been quite a few times over the past 15 years or so when depression has been like really, really bad for me. And one time was the month that I got contacted by the Disney recruiter. And it came at a time when I was ready to walk away from drawing animation. By the way, not the first or the last time that I felt that way. But in this particular case, I had just gotten back from a family barbecue where literally I had a family member. Once I said, you know, I think I'm going to take this year, I'm going to redo my portfolio, and I'm going to apply to Disney. What is happening? Where's my brush? Oh, there. No, where the heck is my brush? Anyway, he patted me on the back, and he said to me, "Do you really think that's going to happen?" And it crushed me. It sent me into a spiral. And I ended up going home and just kind of out of spite began working really, really hard on portfolio stuff. Whatever I could do, I started working really hard on it. And what ended up happening is kind of midway through this process, my sister told me she was getting married. And we were so broke at the time. I mean, we were relying on the food bank and everything. It was a tough time. I don't understand. Oh, it's because I'm using Photoshop hotkeys. Come on, why is it doing that? There we go. Okay. My sister told me she was getting married, and as a wedding gift, she wanted me to apply to Disney. And I'm like, oh yeah, right, sure, you know, because I had a pretty good idea of where my portfolio sat. I mean, we are our own worst critics and everything, but also there is a bit of an objective nature to looking at your own work and saying, oh yeah, I got this type of journey ahead of me. I got so far to go. There, that's how I want it. The light edge on the inside. So now I got to go back and repaint this rock. But I think I have to save this, and close it out. I have to restart my program because my pen is not working. Anyway, she was really, really hounding me. And my sister can be quite persistent. And I was already, like, as I said before, in a downward depression spiral. So I just wanted to do whatever it would take to make her stop bugging me. So I said, fine. And then I learned, well, it wasn't like a super easy process. You had to go on this portal and fill out a profile, almost like a dating app kind of thing, and upload work and all this. So anyway, I did this whole thing because I knew she wasn't going to leave me alone if I didn't. And, once I did it, I told her, I said, there, I applied. I sent her the verification as proof, because I was kind of happy over the fact that I didn't have to spend money on a wedding gift because I didn't have the money for it. So I figured, well, if this will make her happy, I'll do it. But I'm like, yeah, it's not going to happen. So out of sight, out of mind. And what ended up happening is I get a call from the recruiter just a few days later. This is all pretty close to the same time that I had told that family member I was going to apply to Disney, and they put their arm on my back and said, listen, do you really think that's going to happen? Totally destroying my mojo. So I get a call from the recruiter, and that began this sort of, I always call it like American Idol for Disney wannabes. It was that. It was about 8 weeks of interviews and follow-up interviews and short lists and drawing tests and animation tests, and you had to basically make it from week to week, and every week their short list got smaller and smaller. And I was at one point told by the recruiter there were 150 applicants for one job, which basically cemented in my mind, oh, okay, so I actually don't stand a chance at this. This isn't happening for me. This is something that happens to other people, not to me. I'm talking to a guy that lives in LA right now. I was born and raised in eastern New Brunswick, right? Like, these types of things happen to LA people, not people raised in. I'm doing it again. I keep putting the dark edge on the inside. Anyway, ended up going through all the steps. One of the steps that we had to go through, which was nightmarish, was we were given 24 hours to do about a minute of cleaned up painted animation. This is for the Club Penguin brand. That's what the studio was in Kelowna that I was applying to work at, Club Penguin. We were given 24 hours to do 1 minute of cleaned up colored animation from script to screen. What does that mean? It means we had to come up with a story, and it had to feel on brand and be 1 minute of cleaned up production ready animation. Well, needless to say, nobody did a good job on that test. I later found out that the studio was not that happy about that test being given out because it was completely unfair. And but one thing that came out of it was, even though it was a horrible experience, definitely, but also a horrible result from me, I was told that they did like my story. So I didn't find that out until after I got hired, which I'm kind of, spoiler alert, I did get the job much to my absolute surprise. And I was told at one point that it was down to me and one other artist from New Brunswick. And I was so happy to hear that artist later was hired when they had another round of hirings to go through. And that made me really happy because I was like, oh, two New Brunswickers representing. Because up until that point, the only person from New Brunswick I had known of that worked for Disney was an animator by the name of Ricky Knowles, who was very inspiring to me, but still, it still felt like one of those things that happened to other people being hired by professional studio out in LA and stuff like that. Now, we weren't out in LA, but we were on the West Coast. And they flew me all the way out there for a job interview, which blew my mind. You know, because up until that point, I hadn't been on a whole bunch of airplanes. That's for sure. And they flew me out for a job interview and then flew me back home right after it was done, which was an interesting way to spend the day. I think I did stay the night at my sister's house, but anyway, the follow-up test that they ended up doing after that all-nighter was a week-long animation test, rough animation, and we had a week to produce 1 minute of rough animation that told a story, no dialogue, but I don't think at that time any of the characters talked anyways. So, and it was all done in Flash 5. I want to say Flash 5. There we go. So that's what I mean by the light facing inward. Finally, I got that. Jeepers. I'm just adding like little rough speckles on the rocks here. Texture. So it was pretty cool. And then my very first week at Disney, actually, to be honest, my first 3 months was filled with imposter syndrome, hardcore imposter syndrome. And some of the animators there were beyond nice to me and took me aside and explained that they felt the same way when they started, and you know, not to be too down on myself. And they were really big on learning opportunities there, like mentoring and sharing knowledge and getting rid of ego, thickening up your skin so you could take feedback to better your work. Not like critique wasn't meant as a way to tear you down, although some people had a problem with that. There were a few people that had some pretty hardcore egos about them, but those people didn't seem to last too long. And if they did, they got shuffled around. But if you were able to kind of accept that people were offering critique to make work better, it really propelled your artistry. And, you know, I really miss it, because if you are a Disney fan, if you've looked at the DVDs and Blu-rays and all that making of footage that they include, that was basically what my job was like every day. Although I did end up leaving, but that was because there were changes and things in the air that I felt like it was time to go. And then not long after I left, it did shut down too. The studio shut down. So, but it was a great ride. Working for a big studio can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a huge amount of stress. Okay, so this one I have to fix too. I gotta fix them all, but I gotta make sure I keep the light side on the inner portion. Because after I get these painted, I want to put moss on certain parts of it too, just to help make it feel like it's part of the swampiness. So this one, I'm gonna go a little bit lighter than that shade. I'm gonna paint. Yeah. I wanted to do a project like this because we're also doing a short film called Need a Little Help, and I'm gonna have people who are working on it with me on as guests, and I'm going to be animating scenes and stuff on the live stream. But I wanted to do this project before I get too into all that stuff, because I haven't done a huge amount of background painting, and I want to try to get as much of the rust off as I can on this smaller scale stuff before doing these great big elaborate panned backgrounds that I have. Some of them are quite involved, multi-layer, and going to be a lot of fun to bring into Resolve and do the compositing for. But I want to make sure that I do the best painting job on them that I can. So I figured this card game would be a good way to brush up on that and loosen up on my character drawing too, which we'll be getting into that on the next episode. I'll be designing a brand new Wug, the Fire Wug. I kind of have a design for it that I did last year, but I'm going to rework it a bit. But it should be a lot of fun. And whatever I don't get done on this stream for this, I'll have it finished by next stream, so I can show everybody. I'm not as fast as I used to be. There's some medical things that I'm dealing with my hands, and arthritis and stuff like that. And just holding my pen the way I'm holding it now is proving to be a lot. The pain is real. Fussing over this color, trying to get it right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do, there we go. I'll paint this. This rock is angled kind of severe, so it's catching a lot more of the light coming up. So yeah, even at my time at when I was at Disney, I still didn't understand what a panic attack was. And so there were a couple times, both at Disney and then when I left Disney and went to Bronze Studios and that, there were a couple times where I would be feeling like, oh my goodness, like I'm having a heart attack right now. I'm dying. And I didn't exactly know what it was. And then after we moved back here, they got so bad. A couple times I had to call 911. Because again, I thought I was having a heart attack. No, I wasn't. So mental health is very important, and just learning to understand it is very important. Oh, my brush messed up. Okay, so it seems like every time I turn on my checkerboard, my brush messes up. Well, that's wonderful. So I gotta save it and restart Krita again. That is the thing about Krita. It's powerful, crazy powerful, and awesome. I love it. But it does have some bugs that are a little bit annoying. So there, we're starting to see as I add more texture to this corner on the rocks where we're gonna end up. Once I put some like green moss on top of that stuff, I think it's gonna look pretty fun. There's another story that I don't mind sharing. It's embarrassing, but I don't mind sharing. I almost destroyed the background art for Sleeping Beauty. You're probably thinking, well, how on earth would you manage to do that? Well, it was during a trip to LA. I was working for Disney, and we had to go down there for a storyboard meeting. I was the artist that was brought to storyboard during the meeting. So I had to draw live, which I'm not a big fan of doing. But I had to draw in front of the executives live. And in doing that, created a whole bunch of anxiety issues, had massive panic attacks during the meeting, but I kept my mouth shut about it. And the only evidence that I was not okay was all the giant sweat drops on my drawings, because when I have a panic attack, I break out into huge amounts of sweat. And then I start thinking about, oh, I look so gross. I'm just sitting here sweating, which drives my anxiety more, and so on. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And anyway, we got through it, and the project was approved, and they loved the storyboards, and I felt very happy. As we ended up doing a few trips like that. Sometimes we work with another animation studio, and we go down and work with them to kind of help them storyboard and stay on vision. It was just faster than emailing files back and forth over several days. So I didn't mind. It was my money. It wasn't, I didn't pay for the plane tickets, and I was happy to go to LA. At the time, I loved LA. I thought it was awesome. I wanted to move there. I wanted to apply for a Disney feature film job, which you basically had to relocate to get that. You had to live in LA. And I was all for it, but ultimately we decided we didn't want to raise our 4 kids in LA. So I stopped chasing that. And then right when I decided to stop chasing it, Pixar in Vancouver shut down. So that was because I thought, oh, okay, I'll try for Pixar Vancouver. That would be awesome. And then they shut down. So anyway, during one of these trips, our producer, as a reward, took us to the park. and arranged for us to have a tour of the Disney Vault, which is a real thing. Believe it or not, it's a real honest to goodness thing. And it's all climate controlled, and the big giant, like 3-foot thick steel doors and all that stuff. Looks like if you've ever seen Get Smart, sorry, I got to put it back on my work camera. If you've ever seen Get Smart, you know exactly what I'm talking about, these big vault doors and everything. Anyway, we're getting a tour, and the guy who's in charge of it is walking us around, and I'm sort of at the back with my back to this long chain of artwork hanging from the ceiling and like glass protected devices. They were on chains, and it was all the background artwork for Sleeping Beauty. Anyway, I backed right into it super hard. And if you've ever played with dominoes, you know what happens when you knock on one and then it clatter, clatter, clatter all the way down the vault, which was quite like it went on for a good ways. Clatter, clatter, clatter. And the whole time, like each sound, I'm just like, yeah, you know. And that ended our tour. My producer was slightly annoyed at me. My supervisor was annoyed, but definitely took the opportunity to use it to make fun of me for several weeks, which is fair. And yeah, it was, I could have been the guy to destroy all the artwork, but luckily none of the glass frames broke. So I assume they must have been some kind of plexiglass or something, because I really knocked into them hard. Like I almost fell over. So that was fun. That was also the last trip, I believe, if I remember right. I don't know if two things are related, but I never went back to the Disney lot after that. I don't blame them. But yeah, the Disney Vault is a real thing. Not just something they put on the VHS movies or the DVDs. Going back into the Disney Vault. It was a real place. The other thing that was kind of neat was while we were there, they were scanning a bunch of the old animations that like the old timers had done, like Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston and, you know, all those guys from all the old films. And the day we were there, they were busy scanning a bunch of Frank Thomas's Hook animations from Peter Pan. And they were scanning them at ultra high resolution. The rough drawings, not the cleaned up artwork, but the original rough animations. They were scanning them. And excuse me. It was pretty cool to watch. They had white gloves and they were being super delicate with tweezers and all that. But not too long ago, when you worked at Disney, legend has it that animators could sign those scenes out and take them home and flip through them. And it was something they called the morgue. That's where all the old animation went. They called it the morgue. And you could go sign out a scene for research purposes and bring it home and try to learn from it. And then on that day, it was like, don't breathe too hard over here because we're busy doing this. We don't want to contaminate the paper, soaks up the moisture in the air. And we're like, oh, okay. So, yeah, okay. So that's going to be about that big when it's printed. It's going to be about that big. So a lot of these details aren't necessarily going to transfer. I'm just kind of not sure why I'm worried about them, but they're kind of fun to do. So if you guys have, as we continue to do these, if you have any ideas for guests who are, I'm talking to people that live in the area and are local. If you have any ideas for guests, let me know. Send me an email. Let me know. Anybody who's creative and is a bit of a dream chaser, that's who I'm really interested in speaking with. I really like to hear other people's journey, because I can usually find little nuggets of inspiration and wisdom in there to help me deal with, maybe I'm having a hard time getting through an art block or something. Maybe there's just something that's I'm feeling is holding me back or something. And oftentimes listening to another creative talk about their journey and how they overcame their whether it's mental health or whatever, that can really make a difference. When you feel like you're not the only one going through something. Of course, there's also the people who never seem to have that problem. I can't relate too much to them because I frequently deal with, art block and motivation because of the things involved with the ADHD stuff. So sometimes the self-discipline doesn't come as naturally. You really got to battle through, and so you have a productive day. Put some round, I keep hitting Photoshop hotkeys for this. I haven't remapped Krita. I want to put some rounded lines just to help with that form. Maybe here on the branch too, just to help blend in that shading. It's subtle and you're not going to notice it when it's printed for sure, but I'll know it's there. So kind of old rotted stump kind of look. And then I want a different color completely. Not color, but a hue. A little darker. And then I'll put in my wood grain lines. Yep. So hopefully you guys will enjoy the clips that come out of this episode. I know it's a bit of a boring one, but it's kind of a miracle that it even got done today, because I didn't think I was going to be able to figure out the OBS stuff, and there's some other things that are going on that it's really a bit of a bummer of a day. So but I'm going to finish this up between now and our next episode. I have provided scheduling continues to work out properly. I have Bradley Monk scheduled as a guest for next week, and people in New Brunswick might know him as one of our paranormal go-to guys for paranormal investigation. You might be asking, what's that got to do with creativity? I would argue it has a great deal to do with creativity, especially because Bradley is an independent filmmaker. So we're going to talk about how he's able to transform some of the investigation footage into his films, where we can watch his films, and some of the bizarre things. I've seen quite a few hours of his footage because we were collaborating a couple years back, and I had to edit some of his footage. And there's some creepy stuff, some very, very, very creepy stuff. So I'm going to change the color of this rock because it blends into that log too much. So I'm going to go back to this color. Yeah, there we go. There. That stands out better. I like that a lot better. Now just thicken up that edge. You know, it's one of the things I try to teach here at Toon Dojo. I should probably talk about Toon Dojo a little bit too, for those who may not know. Very small studio here in St. John, and we offer animation training that is right on par with what you would expect to prepare you for a professional entry-level position. We're all about that portfolio building. Oh, I'm doing it again. I'm putting a dark on the outside. That's not what I want. Anyway, all about portfolio building. And a lot of the assignments share similarities with the curriculum for college. How do I know that? Well, I've taught the college level. But all of my assignments are designed to be like kill two birds, one stone kind of thing. So accomplish more than one goal. And but in a way that is not distracting from the learning of the main principle. So we tend to get into scene building pretty quickly, but we still go through all the stuff, everything from lock cycles and character takes and lip sync, all that stuff. We still go through it all, and we offer it for junior, like mid, like 13, 16 kind of age group. And then, of course, your main college age group, which I categorize as 17 plus, tends to be the age that people are when they graduate high school. So very cool right here in St. John. Super small studio. Everybody is very passionate that comes in and signs up. And the modules are, well, they're just that. They're modules. So the animation production course, which is our college equivalent level training, is I believe 23 levels. And you know, it's challenging, and it's going to push your thinking on animation and motion analysis and acting and composition, all that stuff. We get into it because really there's no better time to be an animator if you're of the mindset of producing your own stuff and putting it on the internet. because a lot of people are not happy with AI and they want human-made content. So much so that they are still paying the extra cost associated with hiring people versus entering a prompt. And God bless those studios who are doing that. That's fantastic. But also, people are supporting independent artists who are working out of, home-based studios and working away on their own little YouTube series or whatever. People are really starting to come out and support these people. If they have Patreons and stuff like that. So it's really a good time if you want to get into animation and make your own things. I mean, the timing really couldn't be any better. The technology is helping to make it easier. And without getting rid of the actual art form that we all love, which is, kind of the best of both worlds. So, and the software we use here at Toon Dojo, we start with open source software. We get you started right in Krita before doing all the basic animation exercises. And then we move you up into Blender for 2D animation workflow. And using Blender Grease Pencil, it's an incredible animation tool. And there are a ton of animated shorts that have been done in Blender. You can find them on YouTube. One of them that I love watching is it's called The Old Knight. And I can't remember the animator's name, but he's got several shorts that he's done in Blender. And they're just awesome. He doesn't worry about super tight vector line quality, which you can still do in Blender. But he tends to keep a lot of his work rough and loose, and I really enjoy it. So, okay, this rock up here, I did it again. I did the opposite. I gotta switch that. I keep doing it. But yeah, I'm liking the lighter edge on the inside much better. So I didn't get through the whole thing like I thought I would this episode, but that's okay. I'm totally cool with that. So I'm going to finish this up between now and next week. We have Brad coming in, Bradley Monks coming in. It should be a very creepy episode, and should be a lot of fun clips coming out of that for sure. And I'm going to show you guys the finished card next week, and I'll be starting the design for the new Wug card, the actual character design. So we'll be doing some character pre-design work and showing you. I'll get into my workflow and how I approach that, and which is different every time depending on the character or the mood I'm in, how much anxiety I have in the moment. So yeah. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. And as the episodes go, they'll get much more entertaining, I promise. Again, this is still kind of the soft launch phase of Toon Dojo Sketch and Stream podcast. So if you're watching a clip, greatly appreciate it. toondojo.com. Check out our courses, ages 13, 16, and 17 plus for aspiring professionals. Training right here in St. John. And yeah, thanks so much.